Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Generation Wealth, your podcast for all things business and investing. I'm so glad that you tuned in today because we have a huge surprise for you, and this is the 100th episode of the show. I literally cannot believe we've had over 100 episodes at this point. So thanks so much for all your support, for tuning in, for listening to the show. Every single week, we have 2 podcast episodes for you, and we're gonna be making a few changes to the podcast so you are the first to hear it. Officially, after this podcast release, we are going to be changing the name of the podcast from Generation Wealth to the Candy Valentino Show. As we continue to bring you great content on building your businesses and generating more wealth, we'll also be able to navigate into more current events and other types of topics that I think are really important to talk about for entrepreneurs and investors. We also are bringing the show back to YouTube. So many of you reached out and love to watch the show as opposed to just listen. So we will be relaunching the show on YouTube and also on Rumble. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for everyone that purchased the book, that attended an event, that downloads or shares the podcast. It means so much to me. And I just have one small ask for you. If you like the show, if you found any value, if you could please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, share your biggest takeaway or your favorite guest or your favorite episode. It would mean so much to get this out into more ears, more homes, and more hearts across the world. Thanks again for tuning in. Now let's dive into the 100th episode.
The most important critical thing is financial intelligence. A lot of people are afraid of financial intelligence. They're afraid of numbers because their eyes gloss over when you talk about it. But we weren't set up to have financial intelligence. They don't teach us in school anything about financial intelligence, about compounding interest, about taxes. So what happens? In school, like they teach us how to build birdhouses and shop. I don't know how many people here are gonna build a birdhouse, but everybody here is gonna need to balance a checkbook. You don't have any financial intelligence, and then at 18 years old, you can take $500,000 worth of student debt that you're not even sure if you want to go to college. Financial intelligence is the most critical thing that anybody needs to know.
And isn't it interesting, in my experience with entrepreneurs, it seems that finances are the one thing in their business that they tend to avoid.
Because they think somehow that when they make a lot of money, that it'll be solved. It won't. 65% of athletes and lotto winners are bankrupt 3 years after leaving the league or winning the lotto. So more money doesn't create more financial intelligence. You just make bigger mistakes. You spend more. You don't look at the details. So just because you're making more money does not mean that you will have financial intelligence.
Are there a few either KPIs or business metrics or anything that's specific to what you look for in a business when you're looking to invest in a company on Shark Tank or build another business that you really make sure that, okay, I don't need to know all of this, but I got to watch these 3 things?
Well, of course, I need to know the numbers. I need to know what margin they're working off of. I need to know that they know who their customer is. Because if you don't know your customer, then you're taking my money and you're using it for tuition. I need to know that you know your customer. Other than that, when I'm investing in somebody or I'm hiring somebody, I just got to like them. We're still human beings at the end of the day. And if I'm going to invest in you or I'm going to hire you, can I sit across from Zoom or next to you 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for the next 5 years of my life? Listen, I got a lot of billionaires who work for me and work really hard for me. Some of them even dead. Steve Jobs doesn't wake up and then come and ask me how to fix a damn computer, right? Neither does Elon Musk. I don't have to talk to any of them. So if I got to talk to you and you got to be in the company or I'm going to work with you, you have to be a problem solver. We're on the same page. You have to be somebody that even if we fail at this, we're going to start another company together.
What are some of the maybe mistakes and blind sides that you had in this last 30-some year journey?
Not having financial intelligence. I closed FUBU 3 times from 89 to 92. I ran out of money. There's a famous story about how I borrowed, my mother borrowed $100,000 on her house for FUBU. But the story really goes that I turned around, I looked at the bank account, and I had $500 left, and I was 3 months late on the mortgage, and I was going to lose my mother's house because I was paying for raw goods 90 days ahead of time. I was paying for a staff and shipping and utilities, and my accounts receivables, I wasn't getting paid for 30, 60, 90 days. And then I ran through about $12 million when I finally made money. Those are a lot of mistakes. Not trusting my gut. If I look at the 10 investments I made and I didn't trust my gut, Because whether the person looked great, it looked great on paper, everybody said I should do it, I have an ego, oh, I'm Daymond John, I can do this. 8 out of those 10 failed. I just didn't trust my gut. And the 2 that I won at, I felt like, whew, I just made it out of this thing. Nobody else has the blueprint or the operational manual to yourself. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Just do not do it. It's something that many people don't get into until later on in life and realize, I don't care what it is. If I don't like it, I don't trust it. It just doesn't feel right.
I think when you get to a certain level and you start to have success, something happens when we tend to take our foot off the gas and get kind of comfortable, but you continue to show up.
I've been there though.
You've been there.
I've been there. I try to retire right around 33. But as I set new goals and I found that I wanted to challenge myself by becoming an author, becoming an angel investor, I started to see how much I was learning by investing. You know, I joke about my fellow sharks, but I learned from them, but I learned more importantly from the new people coming up, doing business a whole new way. I went on a Shark Tank because I had 10 clothing companies, 8 of them were dead. I didn't want any more clothing. My most successful one is Bombas Socks. They basically were like, well, Daymond, I know that you care about the community and people, and your theory is to make it master and then matter, but I'm going to show you how to make it master and matter at the same time, because every time you sell a pair of socks, we're going to give a pair away to the homeless. Also, I'm going to show you how to sell direct to customers, because retail don't even know who they want to be when they grow up anymore. I learned more from my entrepreneurs than I learned from anybody else.
In the beginning, or even now, like has mentorship, has community, has being in rooms and going to events, has that been important in your journey too?
Absolutely. Mentors are the most important thing to have in life. Growing up in my community, everybody said there weren't mentors around. I was like, no. Mentors are around in the community. They're just disguised as teachers and parents and people who work, for the church and various other things. You know, one of my favorite mentors, my father left when I was 10 years old, and I never would see or speak to him ever again. And my stepfather happened to come into my life, and he happens to be of the Jewish faith. And I remember him teaching me something. He said, Daymond, I want you to be pro-black, but never anti-anything else. And he taught me some important things. Number one, that love doesn't come into color or gender. And number two, white people are just as crazy as black people. And, you know, it's all about mentorship. So that's what it was. It was all about mentorship in my community and around, and I learned from everybody.
I started my first business 25 years ago. The landscape even then was so different for women. There wasn't boss babe and women empowerment and all of this stuff. I mean, you had to get gritty. You had to show up differently in rooms to be taken seriously. What was it like then? I mean, was it even that much more difficult?
It was always a challenge to me when I was the only woman in the room. It's like, okay, you have to buck it up. You got to be as strong as anybody else in the room. But it was also during that time, women weren't very nice to each other. So women in power were not helping other women behind them because they didn't want to seem weak to the people they were working with. And it was something that I'm so happy to see that shifting today.
Amen.
And so many young women coming up in positions of power. And I don't talk about that in exclusion of men. I love working with men. I got tired of all the complaining and criticizing women were doing and blaming the men that stood in their way. I said, stop.
Yeah.
You know, if you were familiar with the law of attraction, what do you get when you complain and criticize?
Get more.
Negative results, right?
Yeah.
So I said, let's change our dialogue from complaining and criticizing the men in our way, and let's start celebrating the progress we've made and start celebrating the men that have helped us along the way. And in doing that, is there more to be done? Of course. But when we do the celebration, more doors will open more quickly than if we complain and criticize. When men and women come together, you get the greatest results.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about how hard work and being focused and disciplined really plays into not just life, but your personal finances and business?
So many of us wanted our kids to have what we didn't have, and so we became enablers instead of mentors to our kids. How many times have any of us said we can't afford it? Well, that's negative. It closes our mind. We have to think about our mindset and the kind of mindset we're teaching our children. If we're saying to our kids, you can't afford it, we can't afford it, then it's negative. Instead, change your dialogue. And instead of saying, I can't, say, how can I? How can I afford it? And that triggers your entrepreneurial spirit. It opens your mind. Your subconscious jumps at the attention and says, I'm going to come up with a way for you to afford it because you're open to the possibilities. Your child wants something, you say, how can you afford it? They get really creative with ways to do it, but allow them to do that. Allow them to earn the money. Allow them to buy what they want, because the greatest benefit is not that they've set a goal and achieved it. The greatest benefit is the amount of self-confidence you see that comes from them being able to say, I did it on my own. The greatest gift you can give anyone is financial education. It's the gift of a lifetime. The law of attraction, you have to think positive things, but you actually have to take action.
Oh, yes.
You actually have to do something and go that extra mile. But you have to have the right mindset. And it starts with mindset, but it ends with action. True success comes from the power of association, having the right people on your team, having the right mentor, and then taking action. Yeah. Not just waiting for it to come to you, but taking action. Above all, having faith in yourself, faith in what you're doing, faith that is needed and necessary, faith that you will succeed. And that formula is something I use in every talk, every interview, and with every client. Because usually a business is successful and then it plateaus. And it's usually because they've stopped growing. They've stopped going to new groups. Their power of association needs to go to kick up a notch. Or they have a lack of self-confidence. And usually they go hand in hand, because when you have the right mentor, you have the right people on your team, when you have a bad day, they won't let you stay there. And that self-confidence comes back. Look at your own personal success equation and determine where you need the work. It gives you the opportunity to really analyze yourself.
What lessons do you feel early on in your career that you still maybe bring today? Like, I think wealth building is just, no matter how much the world evolves, it seems like one of the core principles that's still the same. Have you seen any great changes in your original work and how wealth, money, and cash flow works today?
I've always talked about the importance of assets. As I said, my latest phrase is assets are sexy, because they truly are. And the older you get, the sexier they become, right?
It's true.
Because they're like employees working for you, and that gives you your time back. But I think what has changed is the dynamics of the economic structure. So 40 years ago, Fortune 500 was 85% bricks and mortar, 15% intangible. Today, that's more than flipped. It's closer to 90% intangible, 10% bricks and mortar.
Wow.
And that shift in the economic world we face is what's opened up tremendous opportunity for you and me, for us to be able to compete with big boys, because it's about intellectual property. It's about problem solving. I mean, you can think about Uber, one of the largest transportation companies, owns no cars. Airbnb, one of the largest hospitality companies, owns no hotels, all right? It's, their valuation is based on their intellectual property, their systems. And that gives us the ability to do the same thing and compete.
What does wealth truly mean to you?
Wealth is really success is how you feel about yourself when you look in the mirror. Because wealth is a way of life. Wealth isn't necessarily just money. And so are you creating a life of significance, a life of impact? What's your legacy? Because our legacy is created every single day with every heart you touch. And so to me, wealth is your legacy of life. Have you lived a life of grace? Have you lived a life of contribution? Have you lived a life that attracts other people to want to emulate you? And that's true.
Can you take us back to Amy 13 years ago, and what got you started on this amazing journey to begin with?
Yes. So I always thought I'd be a corporate girl for life. I always say I was a corporate girl turned accidental entrepreneur. And back in the day, I never even thought about if I would ever be an entrepreneur. That word was way fancy, way beyond me. And I was really good at being in the corporate world, climbing the corporate ladder. But here's what happened. My very last job was with Tony Robbins, and I was the director of content development. I got to travel the world, work on the content that Tony did on stage. It was an incredible job. Except for the fact that one day there was a meeting and Tony brought in a bunch of online business owners. He was doing like a focus group situation. Here I was at a side table asked to take notes. So I wasn't even invited to the main table. It was all men. And they went around and talked about their businesses. They were in all different industries: real estate, investing, relationship building, marketing, all these different things. But they all talked about freedom. They talked about the fact that they worked when they wanted, where they wanted, how they wanted. They talked about how creative they got and the products that they created and the lives that they changed. And in the moment, I thought, I don't even know what these guys are doing, but I want a piece of it. I had realized I had never been my own boss, never called the shots. And I wanted that more than anything. So that kind of sparked something in me. That was that moment.
Have there been moments that you've doubted your ability all over again?
A million times. In the beginning, I doubted everything that I did. I really genuinely didn't think I could do this. I doubted myself every step of the way. When I actually went out on my own, I created my first product and I thought I'd make $100,000. The reason I thought I'd make $100,000 is I looked on social media and I'm like, everyone else is like making millions. So if they're making all that money, I can do it too. Well, I made $267 in my first launch. I cried for a week. I thought I wasn't cut out for this. I thought I needed to go grovel back for my job. There were so many moments like that. And luckily, I stayed on the field. Luckily, I stayed in the game and kept going. And the next time I made $10,000. And then the next time I did it, $30,000. And a year from that, I made $950,000 with the launch. So I would have never gotten there if I didn't allow myself to fail in the beginning. The difference now is when I have those doubts, and I still do, when things don't work out, and that still happens, I bounce back faster. I have a track record now that I know, wait a second, that didn't work, but I do have proof that I can make this work. Let's get back out and let's get back out faster. So as you get going, it's going to be easier, but it doesn't go away. And I think that's an important message.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So important. I always say there is proof everywhere. We have a lot of professionals, attorneys, doctors. They want to do something like an ancillary revenue stream alongside of it. What is the best route for them to take to really start to kind of like package all of their knowledge up so that they can reach more people and have more life?
I love the idea of a digital course. And here's why. You can take your knowledge, know-how, and skill set and turn that into something that you can then market over and over again without having to recreate the wheel every single time you want to sell it. So I have a digital course that I have marketed for 6 years. I've always made it better. Each year I'm kind of pouring into it to make sure it's the best of the best, but I'm never starting from scratch. One of the best pieces of advice to give entrepreneurs is find a way to stop starting from scratch and actually find something that works and continue to double down on it. And that's what digital courses can do. And so a doctor, a dentist, a therapist, they can take their knowledge, put it into a digital course, and they can start selling that. And it becomes an additional stream of revenue while they are still doing their full-time thing. I love the idea of a digital course. And I love it more than, let's say, a membership site for someone still in a 9-to-5 job, because with a membership site, you do need to create content every single month and you're likely showing up for them. With a digital course, it could be one and done.
What are some other examples of side hustles that you've seen in your research that's worked really well for people?
You know, when you think about the side hustles and we think about like kind of what you can create, any kind of topic will work with these different models. So there's different things you could do. Number one, and I think the easiest way to create a side hustle is coaching or consulting, whether one-on-one or group. You could put together a coaching package. I'm going to give you weekly coaching for the next 3 months at this price, and I'm taking 5 people, ready, go. And you put it out there and you talk about it. You send it to your friends, your family, ask them to forward it on. You're going to get grassroots in the beginning. So any kind of coaching, consulting packages that you can create is the easiest way to start your side hustle. The second way is a service-based business. And this is what I did. I did social media for small businesses. I just had 2 clients as my side hustle because I couldn't really take any more, but at least got my foot in the door. So I did social media, meaning you do something for them. People will pay a premium so they don't have to do it themselves. So that's a surefire way of creating a side hustle. And then of course, you've got the digital course if you want it, but also membership, masterminds. Those are ways too, but they're a little bit more sophisticated. I like coaching, consulting, or service-based right in the beginning.
If you could just take the knowledge that you have now, being in business for 14 years, you can't have the connections. Nobody knows who you are. If you woke up tomorrow and that was all gone, all you got to do was retain the information that you've built over the last 14 years, and you had to start from scratch tomorrow. What would be some of the very first steps that you would take?
One, I'd get really clear on the lifestyle that I want. One mistake I made when I was first starting my business is I didn't get clear on how I wanted to spend my time, what I wanted my life to look like, when I wanted to stop work, the vacations I wanted to go on, how I wanted to live. And so I built a business and then tried to stuff a life in it, where I love the idea of I'm clear on the lifestyle I want. Let's build a business around that. So that's one of the mistakes I made that I would totally do different. And then the other one is I would remind myself that every decision I make in the beginning is not set in stone. We have so much room for one, error, but two, experimentation. And I thought that every decision I made was going to be my end all be all. 15 years later, I'd still have to be doing whatever it is I decided in the beginning. That is not true. The business you start in the beginning will dramatically change over the years. So just get started with a starter idea so that you can take action to get more clarity to move you toward what you really want.
Can you tell us a little bit about your story getting into real estate before you were who you are now?
Okay, so we're going way back. All right, we're going to go back, rewind to 2002. I was 19 years old. At the time, I was selling kitchen knives for a company called Cutco. Everybody knows Cutco.
Yes, Cutco.
Yeah. And I was actually pretty good at selling these knives. Like I made enough money to survive. I was doing good.
Wow.
And one day, I lost my lead book. And in that lead book was every contact, every lead, every single thing I had for that knife business. So when I lost that book, I remember having a moment of like, well, I don't have the energy to rebuild a knife selling business. And I just didn't. So then I had to pivot, right? I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And just out of the blue one day, I was at a Washington Mutual ATM in Cerritos, California. And I was looking at my ATM. It's getting close to zero. And I had one of those moments. I said, shoot, what am I going to do? And I looked up to the right, and there was a crooked sign that said, Wise Old Owl Real Estate School. So then I had a moment, and I like to call it a defining moment, which is a moment in your life that changes the trajectory of your life. So I thought to myself, I was like, well, you know, if I can sell knives, why can't I sell houses? So I literally walked across the parking lot and I signed up to get my real estate license. That's how I got in.
Oh my gosh, just like that.
I was about to quit real estate, actually. I was talking to my parents and I was going to, just continue with school, and I did not like school. I found out there was a free Mike Ferry real estate event coming into town. I go to this event, and by the end of this event, Mike has convinced me I'm going to be the most successful real estate agent alive. He convinced me I'm a genius. Like he convinced me anything was possible. So at the end of the event, like Mike sold me, and I had never heard a speaker like that. I ended up signing up for one-on-one coaching, and it was $1,000 a month in 2002. I definitely didn't have $1,000 a month. And at the time, I had to put it on my credit card, and I was so broke that me and my girlfriend broke up. My parents got divorced. My mom rented out my bedroom, and I had nowhere to go. I actually ended up living in my mom's garage. I signed up for the coaching. I told myself for 6 days a week, I'm going to work 12 hours a day, cold calling expired listings and for sale by owners.
Okay.
And then Sunday night for 3 hours, expired listings. 90 days later, I ended up making $120,000 in commissions from getting those expired listings. So at 20 years old, I went from delivering pizza to selling kitchen knives to making no money for 6 months, then $40,000 a month overnight. So my life changed really, really fast. And I always tell people, with real estate, you can make a lot of money fast when it comes to real estate. And most people think that it takes years. It does not take years. You can make money fast.
When you also start to see the data that something isn't working, you also have to just be able to willing to shift. I feel like people are so afraid of failure and so afraid of what other people are going to say that they don't want to take lightning action, as opposed to just doing it, see what your result is, and then adjusting.
But they don't understand that that's how you get the success, because success comes from testing. So what does that mean? You try things until you find what works, which means you have to go through a lot of things that don't work until you find what works. So most people, they'll start it and it doesn't work. I'm like, but that's how it's supposed to be. The first 7 ideas aren't going to work until the 8th. That's just how it is.
Right.
So,
but you'll never get there. If you don't continue to just move forward, you're never going to get there. And I think that's one thing when people listen to successful people talk, they think, oh, but that's easy. Oh, you made that action. You got the show right away, right? That doesn't happen to everyone. Having people that you can trust is everything. When I switched from Pennsylvania to Arizona and started flipping here, I didn't have all the same people that I had back there, that whole network for 20 years. So the very first ones, I felt like I was starting all over again. Thankfully, I had a little bit of knowledge to kind of know what things should have costed there, but it was so different here because we have an influx of workers in certain areas. There are different people that have to be, licensed here.
Yeah, it's a different world today, and that's the thing that's wild, because today, like, everything is at our fingertips. Like, I'm on weekly for hours with my students doing Zooms every single week, like live with me, where 20 years ago you didn't have that. And what I tell my students is, like, real estate agents, they want to help you.
Yeah.
Go build relationships, go to open houses, make friends. Contractors, they want your business. They want to help you. Go network, go make friends. This is a business where it's a team sport, and these are all the players on your team. So you don't have to know title. You don't have to know escrow. You don't have to know construction. You just need to know the people that do.
We don't know what we don't know. And what I always think is so important for people to realize is, like, if you don't quit on your worst day. Like, you don't understand the life that you can create if you just keep going. I grew up in a trailer. Like, my dad's a mechanic. Like, I didn't have any, advantage, if you will, for education or money, but I was still able to figure it out. And I think there's so many people out there that just need to hear that information, but then you need to take it a step further, because inspiration is only going to get you so far, right? We need the execution and the implementation. Like, we can't just be all motivated and sit on the couch.
Motivation, nothing. No. You need discipline.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Meaning you got to go do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it.
Oh my gosh. I hear all these people, like when I exited my last company and heard all these people talk manifestation and sitting on your couch and let it coming. And I'm like, that didn't really work for me. Like, I had to get up and do the shit that people didn't want to do every single day. And I know that's been for you too, but look what you've been able to create.
It has to be active manifestation. So like everything in my life I've manifested. So which means I think about it all the time, but I'm not just thinking about it. I'm trying to do what I'm thinking about. And that's how I manifest it. If I just thought about getting flips, but never knocked on anyone's house, I wouldn't be a house flipper, right?
Well, you got to build a brand. And people do not understand how powerful a brand really is, right? And it's not just marketing. Building a brand is making a brand promise that is recognizable, that you deliver on.
I feel in newer entrepreneurs, it's what they skip. Because there's some understanding for some reason that branding and marketing are the same. And they're so uniquely different. The Ritz-Carlton and Marriott were two that I studied when I was in my early 20s. And what they did to build that brand really is what set them up for success.
You got to soften the beachhead. You got to build the brand, right? If I start here, it's too high, this is going to be painful, but I can live with it. We would run ads that didn't tell you to call us. Didn't say go sign up.
It's just building the presence.
I did a NASCAR race, multiple NASCAR races. That's branding. But all of a sudden what the population thought was, wow, who's this LifeLock? I see DuPont, I see Home Depot, I see Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Citibank. Oh, that must be some big company like these guys.
And really what you're doing is you're paying to shorten the path. So rather than going and waiting to have the customers and build the customers and do the marketing, it's like, let's build the brand first, so that then we can accelerate past, because otherwise you wouldn't have done what you did in that period of time.
Right. I used to get in super early when I was young, because I knew I wasn't smarter than everybody else, but I was goddamn gonna outwork you, right? If someone beat me in, if they came in at 6 and I got in at 6:15, the next day I'm in at 5:30. I will beat you into the office. And I used to look at these guys that were married fathers, and I'd be like, sucker, you got other obligations, I got nowhere to be. I didn't drink, I didn't date much, I guess, either, but, right? I was going to outwork them, right? I was scared shitless umpteen times. I didn't know if I was always making the right decision. So we all have that insecurity that makes us question ourselves. What I would say is just don't let it get the better of you. So we all know those leaders who either their coping mechanism of insecurity is because I said so, because I'm the boss, do what I told you to do, don't challenge me again. If you have that person in your organization, get rid of them today. Do not wait till tomorrow. Can them. Or, do we all agree, let's lead by consensus? Hell no. That never works. Okay? So, I just want you to understand, we all have that. We all have that same insecurity. So, the way I fought it was I thought, I have to hire smarter, better, more experienced people than me. And I can't let that flare up my insecurity. If you're not making mistakes, if you don't have problems, you ain't pushing. You're playing it way too safe, right? Push yourself. Understand that a decisive point means that if you fail, it is catastrophic to the mission, okay? So let's say your target's trying to get $1 million in sales, revenue for the year, right? If you came in at 930,000, it's not catastrophic. We're all like, oh, dang, so close. Good year. Right? It was all good. That was a goal. Somebody was managing it. Somebody was a leader of that group. You should be like, okay, what else do you need to do your job better? You don't come in and go, damn it, we didn't get $1 million, shut it all down. No. Decisive points, though, you miss it, it's catastrophic. If you hit it, you're exponentially faster. You get 1% credit for an idea. I'll give you 2% more, so up to 3 for a strategy. And you get 97% credit for execution. Because I can assure you, whatever the hell you wrote in that business plan, whatever that model was, the one thing I can guarantee you is it will not look like that. right? And so what I need to understand is the people I want to back financially are the ones who say, I can adjust.
Yes.
I'll deal with the problem.
Yes.
Right? I don't expect no problems and execute on that business plan.
Right.
It never happens that way.
We talk a lot about this a lot at our events. It's not the information that matters, it's how you execute and implement the information. So it's like you can have the best plan in the world, and really in a month it could be completely gone to shit because of whatever happened or whatever the problem was, or you're getting sued or something happens. Can you share with our audience a little bit about that journey from starting in the grocery store, trying to figure out something because you just wanted pizza for God's sakes and you couldn't eat pizza, and what brought you to here, and a little bit of the struggle along the way?
My body had all kinds of inflammation, and one day I woke up and I was really sick. I had blood clots, I had pulmonary embolisms, I couldn't walk. So that's where my journey really started. I wanted to get off those horrendous drugs. My family, we always did Friday night family pizza fun night with the kids, and I couldn't eat pizza anymore. So I was trying to figure out a way to make a pizza that was grain-free, gluten-free. I found this recipe online, and it was the cauliflower recipe, and I made it. For 9 months, I didn't get out of bed. I gained a ton of weight. So I went on this journey, and I did the Martha Beck program, and I became a coach, and we had these healthy happy hours. And it was no alcohol, but we would bring healthy food. So I started making the cauliflower pizza crust and bringing it to that. And this other health coach was like, we should take this to Farmers Market. We started serving the cauliflower pizza crust at Farmers Market, and that's how I started. And so we went online with it, and we used StoryBrand, telling stories, making your customer the hero. Instead of just talking about my product, we talked about customers that had been eating it at this healthy happy hour and having these amazing results. And so that year we went from negative 269,000. By the end of 2017, we had done 5.6 million.
How did you develop the discernment to see some of those things and those characteristics that you missed in that partner selection in the beginning?
Well, I would say, for starters, I would have had more confidence in my own ability to scale in production rather than giving that away to somebody that I just immediately trusted. I would have done my due diligence, for sure. And yeah, I would have partnered with a really good attorney. Okay, I had the cheapest attorney because I was really cheap and I was trying to watch my money. Huge mistake. Your attorney is worth your weight in gold. Like, get a good attorney, for sure.
When a founder can really, I say, let go of control-itis and allow somebody else to come in, right? Then that's somebody else's skill set can really take it much further. And you're now the visionary, which is such an amazing place to be. Were there some things that you needed to overcome in order to say, it's okay, and it's not defining my worth or what I'm capable of, and this is really for the health of the business and my employees?
I really got depressed. I was in the boardroom because I was the chairman of the board at the time, and I was in weekly meetings. Like, they rebranded our packaging. They redid the packaging. I wasn't a part of that at all. I would not have done what they did. That was hard, and I just had to know that I've got to let it go. I didn't do it very well, to be honest with you. I didn't. But the pandemic hit, and I became a mom again and a wife again, and I realized in 2019, I had gone on 59 trips, but 2018, I probably doubled that. I wasn't home much, and that was really, really hard on my family, and they never shared how hard it was until later. Like last night when my daughter needed me because it's homecoming week, I didn't go to the founders meeting. I would have normally told my husband, you need to take over here. That was really eye-opener. I mean, family has to be first.
As entrepreneurs, where often we are in our businesses, we try to control and force and press, but if we just allow and trust that life is actually giving you what you need in that moment, I think it just makes for a much simpler build.
Early on, I got a lot of no's, and I always say no is your next opportunity, and now I tell myself no. I say no to a lot of things, because I realize what I sacrificed to build the business and how important that is to get that back. There's a lot of highs and a lot of lows being an entrepreneur, but there isn't a lot in between. One of the things I was saying really quick is that disasters would happen. In 2018, I lost the company $1 million. What I realized is if you stay authentic and you stay true to your customers, and you have that relationship with your customers and you own your mistake, they will be so loyal to you, and you'll watch your sales might dip a little bit because you made a mistake, but then they will skyrocket. If you're going through a time where you're having some hardships in your business, just know that if you just persevere and you stick with it and be true and be authentic, you're going to eventually.
You wake up in the morning and everything that you've built, your entire company, the money that you've created is gone. What would be the one thing that you would do tomorrow when you woke up in order to try to get it all back?
I would definitely start building relationships again, like one relationship at a time. And the one thing that I love is, I can't stress this enough, my business scaled by making my customers the hero, and not just, I say this all the time, it's the wrong word to use. I always say, don't vomit your information. That's bad when you're talking about a food company. You shouldn't use the word vomit. I got to think of a new word, but don't just talk about yourself and your business. Talk about how your product or your coaching business transforms people. Use the experience that people have with your services or your products and highlight those people. So I'm talking about people having genuine, authentic, real experiences with your products and services that have benefited them. Because people see through all of that.
Do you ever feel like sometimes those emotional experiences that come out of nowhere are maybe an indication that you're onto something?
It's a feeling of, I've been more convicted, more passionate than ever in sharing this new message. I love talking about positivity. I love talking about the power of positive leadership. I'm talking from a standpoint of leadership, culture, teamwork, and I'm giving them ideas on how to build their culture, how to lead their organizations, the best way to engage their people, how to deal with difficult conversations, how to overcome the energy vampires and negativity that will sabotage a team and organization, and also how to do this at home. That's something I truly love, and I will continue doing that for the rest of my life. I continue to get energized more and more talking about this message. You start to see the little nuances and what makes the difference between average and greatness. What's the difference between good and great? So there's those little things that you can share that someone hasn't thought about that makes all the difference. It's fun talking about those things.
It's so interesting because working with entrepreneurs and people in leadership too, we see that more than ever, we're connected, but yet we're in a world filled with division, loneliness, anxiety, and you talk in the book about oneness. Can you talk a little bit about how that concept can apply not just in our professional lives, but personally, and what is oneness all about to you?
Well, the reason why we're addicted to things is because there is a disconnection. We're filling that gap with cheap substitutes. We're filling it with things that aren't good for us. We're doing it to try to feel relief. What we really want is restoration. So everything in life comes down to oneness or separateness. I give examples, like a leader with integrity comes from the word integer, which means whole and complete. So a leader with integrity has wholeness and completeness. They feel one. Now go to the narcissist. The narcissist actually feels separate. And because they feel separate, they focus on self. They don't care about anyone else. They see other people as objects that they can or want to control or to protect themselves from. So when we move from oneness to separateness, we move from positive to negative. As we move towards oneness, there's wholeness, there's healing, and negative thoughts separate us, positive thoughts uplift us, fear divides, love unites, and it can all be explained in terms of oneness and separateness.
What are maybe some of the things that people are experiencing that's creating the whole, and what are some of the things they can do to start to bridge it and fill it naturally and healthy?
A lot of times it's not what they're doing that's creating it, it's what has been done to them. It's trauma that we've experienced. It's painful and negative experiences. People who feel unworthy and also perfectionist are actually the same at the root cause. They both feel unworthy. The person who is a unworthy person who doesn't take action, they just retreat from life and they feel unworthy, so they don't do anything. The perfectionist actually feels unworthy, but now they have to work really hard and produce incredible things to feel validated and recognized to compensate for the unworthiness that they feel. They're two sides of the same coin. So it's just understanding that. And the more you understand that, then you could start to identify yourself with who you truly are. Your identity should not be determined by your performance, by the uniform you wear, by the success you've created. You are loved. There is a plan for your life. You're not an accident.
Why do you think the things that we need the most to have more oneness, to be more whole, are sometimes the very things we resist having the most?
Because this life, this world, this existence, what's happening is there's a force that's always trying to divide and separate, and there's a power that's always trying to unite. And that is the ultimate battle. There are two main frequencies, the positive frequency and the negative frequency. And that's the journey of life. How do I move from negative to positive? How do I overcome adversity? So the negative road is the easy road. So there is no resistance there. The harder road, the more difficult road, the more worthwhile road is the positive road. And anything that is worthwhile is a lot harder. It's actually easy to be negative. It's harder to be positive when you're facing challenges. So the resistance is going to be greater, and it's going to be harder because it's more.
Being an entrepreneur, if you're not committed to the journey, if you don't love the journey of building a business and being an entrepreneur, it's going to be really hard when life takes a turn. But if you love the process of it, you will outrun, outlast, outsurvive anyone in your industry.
Here's the deal. Being positive is a competitive advantage. It is a real competitive advantage. Optimism is a transfer of your belief to others. Leadership is a transfer of optimism and belief to others. So it's incredible when I can be optimistic, great leadership, I transfer my belief, and then together we rally our team and we go out through the adversity, through the circumstance, and we create our future. And guess what? Those who are negative, those who are pessimistic, they're not going to do it. Pessimists do not change the world, right? It's the optimists that do. And that's why it's so important now more than ever. There'll be outside forces that try to sabotage your culture. And that's why you got to continue to build your culture, build your leadership, build your team, create oneness so you'll be more powerful with your team.
Find your tribe, whether you're learning real estate or just general entrepreneurship, or no matter what niche within real estate or any business. If you're by yourself, it is so much harder.
So true.
It is so much harder.
my God.
And so find a tribe. I feel like we're all just a bunch of adults walking around with our umbilical cords trying to plug it into something. Like, come on, man, let's plug it in. And there's a lot of really great communities in the real estate space. Clever Investor has one. Yeah. I love what Pace Morby is doing with the sub-2 community. Like, there's really great communities people can get plugged into. That's always step one. Just get in proximity to other people doing what you're doing.
When you look back, is there something along the way that you kind of knew that you should be doing? If you could have done something different and we have a magic wand, what would it be?
The answer to your question is find better partners. I wish I would have found better partners. My first few partnerships fell apart real fast because I partnered with people that weren't complementary to me. They were too like me. I picked bad partners. I didn't go deep enough with them. We weren't in alignment with our goals and our core values and all that other stuff. When I got into real estate, I was an anomaly. I had so much desire. Like my internal drive, I didn't need any external motivation. I didn't need anything. I had an insane amount of desire. And that came from pain. I was so tired of being broke. I was so tired of being out of control, picked on, bullied, pushed over, passed over. Like, I was over it. And I was like, you know what? I'm not cut out. I was in the military. I hate people telling me what to do. I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm going to control my time and my destiny. It's going to happen. And I became a savage with my vision. And I wish I would have found a mentor sooner because I would have got to the money faster. I did it for 9 months on my own because I was too proud to ask for help. My mom died in my arms. You know, she had leukemia. Cancer's really rough way to go. And she went downhill real quick. And it was just me and my dad. It was literally the worst thing. And anybody who's ever lost anybody in front of them it's just awful. But you get to that really dark place and you're reflecting on like all of it, you know, like what is going on? And it forced me to go do the one thing that I was scared to go do, which is confront my pain. My grandparents were Pentecostal, very poor, grew up in a trailer park, abusive, recovering alcoholics, crazy, spoke in tongues, snake handling crazy, scared the shit out of me. My mom, I walked in one day, I didn't even know she was bisexual. She's making out with some lady. Another time I walk in, my dad's having sex with his secretary. I was a professional compartmentalizer and barrier, and I would have been a great serial killer. And that's why I'm a great entrepreneur. It's like a dark passenger that allows me to channel that pain and that frustration and that energy into accomplishment. So when I said I was a savage with where I was going at, I had to. It was my only outlet. Otherwise, I was gonna end up in jail or prison or overdosing or doing something stupid. I got really good at it, but it's also the number one thing that holds you back. When people say like, oh, Cody, I could see you, like you're gonna be big someday, you know, you're gonna unlock the next level. I didn't know what that meant. Now I do, because I went and had open heart surgery on my inner child. I put in years worth of therapy in EMDR and horse therapy and acting therapy and men's groups and addiction groups and all this stuff. When you go that deep on yourself, you really discover your purpose. Now, I'm super connected. I pray every day, you know, but I had to realize that I cannot give what I do not have. I wasn't even loving on myself, let alone other people. I didn't unconditionally love me. So how do I give that to a partner? She's amazing, like one of the best human beings on planet Earth. And we've leaned on each other as we've gone through this really tough time. I finally got to a place where I'm like, I'm gonna make it a mission in life to unconditionally love the people around me. But I had to do it for me first.
Thank you for going there, because I think it shares a lot of people that regardless of how you're perceived, like we all struggle with real things. Like, and just because we have maybe success in one area doesn't mean that it's sunshine and rainbows in all the other places. What is your definition of wealth?
Freedom. I mean, that's immediately, it's freedom. You know, for me, wealth, success, happiness, hell, all of it, to me, at this point in my life, is an obligation. It's not a destination. My brands and my companies have done over 100 million. But I've never made 500 million. I've never made I've never sold a big company and made like one massive payday. I'm just a hard worker and make money each year. But I can tell you this, it doesn't matter to me. It's the way I operate on a daily basis that matters. Success is a software program that I downloaded and I operate from. It's not a thing, a moment, a destination, or a goal. That's how I feel about wealth as well. I've worked so hard to build a financial wall around me and my family, so I don't care about gas prices. I don't care who the president is. I'm not trying to surround myself with negative people. Like, I don't do any of that because I'm in this little protected bubble built with real estate, which is why I love real estate as a vehicle. It's protecting me because I got the cash flow, I got the tax benefits, I got the earned income that comes from my quick flipping business, and I get to do it with people I love. How much more healthier and wealthier can I be?
This one thing, had I done this, had I listened to a podcast like this, had I actually done what you're supposed to do in business, I probably would have saved myself over $1 million, if not more. Every single year, as your life changes, as your business grows, you want to make sure that you're going back in and reevaluating the assets that you have and the risk that you may be taking on, especially if you have a business. Had I done this, I would have been able to increase the value of the contents in my business, the value of the building that it would have cost to rebuild it, and I would have had a lot more money when tragedy happened. I like to make sure that it's recession proof, something that has a simplistic business model, something that needs little innovation that can maybe just market better or provide better value or better service than a competitor. Knowing what I know and being in the obviously business world for 25 years, I would be looking at starting something like home repair, like electrical, plumbing, anything like that, because no matter what, if the market dips down and we go into a recession at any point, people are going to need things in their home repaired. They're not going to go out and buy all the new things. They're going to try to make what they have work. Top 3 mistakes I see most business owners making. There were a lot of people talking about mindset and how to start a business, but most people weren't talking about how to sustain a business. So I would say the number one thing that I see is people not developing their AccuM around business finance. They wait because they don't understand it. They try to learn all the marketing, all of the sales tactics, how to do Facebook ads and all these things. But what business really comes down to is the numbers, the data. And when we know and we can make business decisions from data and from numbers, we can be more informed, because business at its core, it's not just about what we make. It's also what we keep. And business finance is what's going to teach us that. Most people are thinking that they own a business, but they're actually self-employed. Now, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with that. If somebody wants a lifestyle business and they just want to make money on the side, or they want to be able to be remote, there is nothing wrong with it. But most people just don't know what they're building. They don't realize that they're building a job. So it's really important for any entrepreneur to really identify who they are. Most people starting out are not entrepreneurs. It has to be developed. I have the very odd story of I have to be the talent. Like even doing this podcast and showing up, like that's to me the talent role. And it's so incongruent that sometimes I have to remember that it's okay to step into one of the other roles, but always know who you are. When you know who you are, then you can hire all the other people that you need, because you need all of them to have a really successful business. They don't realize it's creating this inner civil war because they're being incongruent with themselves day to day. It's always easier to own a business, start a business with something that you have experience in. But any business that you start, you want to have experience of some sort in it. It's going to help you be successful. So if I have experience in plumbing, I'm not going to probably go start an insurance agency. If I don't have experience in any of those things, I would probably be looking at a laundromat. Or is there something that you don't have to have a license for that you can hire other people, other talents, and you be the entrepreneur? That's how I would start to look at it. But the thing is to always remember that some of these businesses may not sound sexy. They're not tech. They're not some new innovation, but they're really easy in order to grow and scale and to make money from. Everyone, for some reason, feels that they need to build a business around their purpose. And I think it's the biggest crock of shit. You get to choose every day to be present and have purpose. If you sit on your couch and wait to have a purpose, that might never come. Instead, taking the steps forward and choosing to be purposeful in your day, whether that's doing this interview or working with a client or working with a teammate. One of those things might not be my purpose, but I can be purposeful when I'm connecting with the person in front of me. So I think building a business around your purpose or your passion even can really lead people down the wrong path.